We're going to move to a focus on Calgary. Calgary is the largest city in Alberta, and it's a metropolitan area that covers 1.2 million people. Canada has been reversing the tide on fluoridation, ending it where it exists, but also stopping it before it starts. And according to an article on the Fluoride Action Network website, Peter Van Collet, director of the Environmental Training Institute, has said that there have been no new fluoridation schemes in Canada since 1999. So they must be doing something right. So let me introduce to you Dr. James Beck, the co-author of The Case Against Fluoride, and Dr. Robert Dickson. So fellas, come on.
Well, let's let Bob go first, because he's the one that drew me into this back in 1998 or so. Bob was the only physician on a committee composed of himself and 5 dentists who were against fluoridation. So, Bob, you can tell them the story.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey here. Personally, I was, I guess, pro-fluoride because I voted for fluoride in the 1998 referendum. And that's because I hadn't done the research, I hadn't looked at any of the information myself, and I trusted the Calgary Health Region to give me good information. And when friends and colleagues challenged me after I voted for fluoridation in '98, they said, well, have you looked at the literature? And I said, well, no, I can't look at everything. As a family physician, community physician, I have so many things on my plate. And they said, well, it would behoove you to do that. So I did, and I was abhorred by what I found. I was absolutely floored, and very much like our main dentist here in Canada, Dr. Hardy Linebeck, he in 1998 changed his mind on fluoridation as well. He was a major proponent of fluoridation until 1998 when he looked at the literature closely, and now, or since then, he's been one of Canada's most ardent anti-fluoridationists, and one of the most knowledgeable too. If you want to refer to probably Canada's most knowledgeable dentist on fluoridation, it would be Dr. Hardy Linebeck. So in 1999, after reviewing all the literature, I changed my mind on fluoridation as well, and I just couldn't leave it alone. There's so many issues out there. I've done so much social justice work around the world, but this one, it just really got to me. That it just should not be happening that we are mass medicated without control of dose or dosage and without any follow-up research or without really watching to what happens to people that are mass medicated. So that's when, as Jim said, I got Dr. Beck involved, and that was the keystone of it all, because he has been Canada's leader, Canada's foremost expert since 1999, since we tackled this issue together. And what we did is built on the past successes, the past work of Elke and Jack Locke and Faye Ash and others. And we started meeting with deans of medical schools, with medical officers of health, dental officers of health, committees and subcommittees and city council, and mainly with individual counselors ourselves. And that was where we made the most successes. I find it's extremely difficult to argue the science with people that are so mired in their dogma that they just do not want to look at new information. They do not want to ever admit that they're wrong. But where we had our successes was in working with council, and we were fortunate to have 2 counselors on site, city counselors that were quite anti-fluoride and environmentally motivated. And they became our major proponents there, and then they helped to introduce us and work with other counselors that came on board. And as new counselors came on and some of the older ones fell away that were pro-fluoride, we were able to convince the vast majority of the counselors here in Calgary that again, not so much with the science, as Elke said, but with the fact that, when you look at the morals and the morality of mass medicating without control of dose or dosage, that just doesn't fly for people. It's the ethical side of things that counselors can base their decision on, since most of them are not scientists. Jim, do you want to add in here?
No. Well, I mean, we're talking strategy and tactics, if that's my understanding of this teleconference, and I can tell you something about that, because after I got connected with this committee that Bob was on, I went to the one city councilor I knew was not in favor of fluoridating the water. It happened to be the councilor for my ward. And he told me that this was the first time that the council had been approached by anyone with the credentials that I had. Now, at that time, those credentials, I'm a physician, but I'm also a scientist with a PhD in biophysics. Those credentials didn't represent much knowledge about fluoridation, but unfortunately, the letters behind your name seem to open doors for you, and so this counselor encouraged me to pursue this, and so I began efforts to lobby counselors along with Bob's help, and we met with individual counselors over the period of 10 years or so, and with small groups of counselors. So my recommendation here is to approach your campaign, your effort to stop fluoridation, with the recognition that the law puts a responsibility for having fluoride in the water or added to the water or stopping that addition in the hands of the town and city councils. That applies to all the provinces of Canada, and as well, I think, to all the states in the United States, except where there's mandatory statewide requirement for fluoridation in the 13, I think, the United States of the United States. So the idea now is you have to get a majority of those counselors to vote to stop fluoridation or vote to reject the starting of fluoridation. The critical thing is to have an ally on council. If you can just get one counselor to open her or his mind and consider the issue, or find one counselor who's already come to the conclusion that fluoridation should be rejected, then that opens doors to other counselors' offices, and you just have to work at it patiently and with recognition that the counselors are in a very bad position of being given this responsibility and facing the fact that they're so-called experts and real experts as well, coming from both sides of the issue. And most of them are not scientists and are not prepared to evaluate scientific papers and that sort of thing. So I presented the argument to them that they have three questions to answer. Is fluoridation effective in preventing cavities? And the second question, is it safe for human consumption, the fluoridated water? And the third, is it ethical? And as Elke and Bob have both indicated, it's rather, if not absolutely fruitless, frustrating to work on it from the scientific angle. The science is what determines the questions came down to was, is it ethical? Because they said the science was coming at them from both sides, and they were not prepared to deal with it, and they didn't know what to do, how to prepare themselves. So they gave more emphasis to the ethical question, and that's something I think I didn't do well enough. I give it more emphasis now, but at the time I was absorbed with the scientific arguments, and the ethical argument seemed so simple and so obvious that I didn't give it much time, and that created, I think, an imbalance in the issues. In the end, though, in Calgary, we had a vote of 12-3, and of those three who were in favor of continuing fluoridation, one was a new counselor and one was a new mayor. who had said that they really didn't know enough about it to make a decision on it. So they decided to go with the status quo. That third one was an older counselor who had been around a long time, who was very strongly in favor of fluoridating the water and wasn't open to considering any arguments about it. So essentially, we had just one real opponent on that 15-member council. And I want to point out also that when we win, it makes the next win a little bit easier, and it makes the next win take a little less time. So I think we're winning in general in the United States and in Canada, and that helps us. I would agree with any of you who are thinking out there, well, that's silly because the decision shouldn't be a popularity contest. But it's a fact of life. Just as it's a fact of life that we need to get the help of the public and the press in order to give the counselors the courage to do the right thing. It's very tempting to shake your fist at them and say that you're getting reelected is not important when it's balanced against the health of 1 million people or so. But the fact is that they are at risk of losing an election in some cases, and that they're very sensitive to that sort of thing. So I guess that's about all I want to say right now, but I'd be glad to answer any questions that I can.